Hey everybody, it's Marty the JavaScript Friday. Party? Friday. Marty the JavaScript Friday. No, party and my buddy Rhett. And it's Saturday morning at 10:16 a.m. I've already taken the dogs on a nice long walk. It is absolutely beautiful outside. According to my little thing on the lower left of my application, my taskbar, toolbar, Windows toolbar, it's 66 degrees outside Fahrenheit, which is beautiful. It felt warmer out there. I bet you if I clicked on that, it would be like, feels like 78, 79 degrees Fahrenheit. But it is definitely much cooler here than it normally is this time of year. I would say we are typically this time of year, it's not unusual to have like degree days that are in the 90s. Not, I think 100 would be like, it's probably like another week before we typically will see 100. Actually, by now we might even see 100 degrees. So we'll probably have like a high of like 85, 86 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty pleasant, especially for me because I've been outside running a lot and been highly active. So all that. I did get a nut for my buddy Rhett, so we will hand that off right now. So we're all looking good, right? We got 100%. But then on Friday, we ran into an issue in app. So let's go to our app spec. And this, I've been thinking and thinking and thinking about this because this really brought out like sort of bad memories for me. And the thing is what happens, um, like just a standard scenario is you're just sort of going through your life. You got your code done, everything seems fine, and then all suddenly, um, oh, I could see this. All suddenly, like for no apparent reason at all, um, unit tests start failing. And which is the thing that's really hard about that is I don't think most, like if you were like in a software development organization, right? Like it's like a highly focused, highly technical software development organization, and you had 100 people in that organization, you probably only have maybe 8 or 9 people that actually like genuinely know exactly what a unit test is. Like the rest of them, a lot of them know, maybe the majority of people know like what it is from like the general definition and all that. But like I know what a car engine is, but I don't really know what a car engine is. You know, I know that it's a thing that is in the front of the car and it makes the car move. But like I had a car and when I bought it, the dealer altered um, the title because I wanted a 6 cylinder Camry and they gave me a 4 cylinder Camry and they actually altered the title. And what's very interesting is every time I've ever talked to anybody from the industry, well, first thing I told my son about it, who's an attorney, and he's just like, well, the problem is you have to, if you were going to sue about this, you have to sue for actual damages. And since a 4 cylinder uses less gas than a 6 cylinder, you don't have any actual damages. And it was like, oh, okay, that's a good argument. And then I mentioned it at Honda, and they're like, oh, well, you know what? You didn't have any actual damages. And then I mentioned it to a waitress at the Mexican restaurant, and she's like, oh yeah, no, see, you didn't have any actual damages. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just sort of a scam that happens all the time. Like they take titles and just alter them. Well, I had this car for like 7 years, and I did not realize until the seventh year that I had a 4 cylinder, not a 6 cylinder, even though I thought that whole other time I had a 6 cylinder. That's kind of how people are and most people are in unit tests. Like they know what a unit test is, but they don't know what a unit test is. And they all know that unit tests are something that somebody that's important wants really, really bad, and that breaks from time to time, and it's like a whole like thing when that happens. And so anyways, so what'll happen is you're just standard developer, you're just doing your thing in an enterprise environment, getting paid, enjoying your work, and then next thing you know, they say unit tests are broken, and it's your code, and you're like, oh my gosh, I just did I just did a bug on um, something. You know, did a bug on the menu system, so that something in the menu system must be broken. They're like, no, it's in the XYZ system, and you're like the rendering the workflow engine code. And you're like, well, I haven't touched workflow engine code in 2 years. How are unit tests breaking in there? And you're like, you can't. You know, then you got to go back and you haven't even looked at this stuff in 2 years, and your unit tests are breaking in there. And for some strange reason, well, not for some strange reason, like upper management thinks that you broke it 2 years ago, and they may not even realize that it was the last time you touched it was 2 years ago, and your lead doesn't understand it, and your manager, like, they can't possibly explain it because they don't understand it, and nobody understands what's going on, and so they just assume that you broke something in that code, and there's just no convincing them otherwise, and that's a real pain in the butt. And so this situation, when it came up, it sort of reminded me of that. And I was like, okay, how does this happen? Like, what happened? And let's see if it's still broken. And actually, now that I see this, like, this is probably the reason it started breaking. We probably got rid of this code, and that would do it. But so when I did a focus on this, and I hit that, suddenly we lost a couple percentage of code coverage. And let's see, let's hit reload. Let's see, now we're getting 100%. So yesterday we definitely were looking in here and we were not getting 100%, and now we're getting 100%. And it's weird, right? Like, sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. So let's hit save and see if we can get it to see if it'll break. I just made a kind of a meaningless change. We're still at 100%. And I can't even tell you how many times then you bring it down locally and you're like trying it out, and it's not failing for you. So basically we saw this failing yesterday. Now it's getting 100%, like it always got 100%. And so then what'll happen is you'll be like, it's still doing that. And then they'll test it and it is doing 100%. And then this is what happens. I think what happens is they change a setting in the CI/CD so that it runs everything, and it's fixed again. And then in a month, they decide, we could save money by not running all the unit tests every time. Like, why would you run a unit test in an area that you don't do? And then things start breaking again. Yeah, so now we are not experiencing this. Let's stop it. And then somebody changes something again, it breaks again, and nobody can figure out why things are breaking. And basically the problem, I think the core problem is that as a developer, you will have much more layers between you and the decision makers and leadership than like any other buddy, because usually developers have their own specific managers. So you have to, if you're going to get the message up the line properly, you have to form it in such a way that your lead can communicate it to your manager, who then can communicate it to the director, and who can then communicate it to the manager, directors, who can then communicate it to the VP, who's the one who makes all the decisions. So you have to come up with a really good, succinct message that really explains everything. But anyways, it looks like whatever that problem was is gone now. So there's just no telling. There's just no way to tell. So we will definitely keep an eye on this and see if we can figure out what we can do, or see if we can figure out when it starts to break again. Because I know it's going to. I know that this is going to happen again, and it's just a matter of time. So we got that. We got 100%. We got 100% here. Reload. So we have perfect coverage on our unit tests for the moment. We'll see. We'll see if it stays that way. But we are done with unit tests, so it looks like I'll be committing this code. But before we do that, we'll run our end-to-end tests. And this is so nice, right? Because like honestly, I would have like the next step for me would normally be like, okay, click through and make sure that everything still works, that I haven't inadvertently broken anything. Well, that I there's nothing that I would not there's nothing that I would not do that isn't in the end-to-end test right now. So all I have to do is go run the end-to-end test and I'll know if we broke something inadvertently. So that is a nice luxury. Um, it's like one of those things like I don't think you need end-to-end tests until you need end-to-end tests. And then when you need them, if you don't have them, it's too late. Um, and so this is npm run. And so I was having a hard time remembering if it was open colon Cypress, which I think makes more sense from like the way English grammar works, or if it was Cypress colon open. So, which isn't really how we generally speak. But then it dawned on me, well, how would npm know what you want? Like, like it doesn't take the command and like I think if I in English if I was telling somebody uh like let's say I have two sons, right? Rod and Lex. And let's say I wanted Lex to mow the lawn. I would not say Lex colon mow lawn. Like I wouldn't say let's say I was going to tell my wife to tell Lex. I wouldn't say Lex mow lawn. I would say um well, maybe I would. I think I would say mow the lawn, Lex. Normally, I would say the verb before the noun, but this kind of has to know who you want to tell it to first. So I want to tell Cypress, and then I want to tell Cypress to open. So give Cypress the command open. And I think that is like one of those things where like people can't quite figure out what what like artificial intelligence is going to replace and what it's not going to replace. I think that is the thing. Like I actually use artificial intelligence AIs every day now, like almost every single day. And the thing is what I've learned is one of the one of the most difficult things that you have to do when see chat. So the AIs don't tell you like what level of confidence they have in whatever they're telling you. They just tell you that um, they just give you information, and then they don't say I have 70% confidence in this or anything like that. They just give you information whether they. So that's one thing. The other thing is they don't really differentiate whether they're giving you sort of a the like normal standard nomenclature and names and stuff that's just known throughout the industry, or whether that's something you and ChatGPT, or yeah, you and your AI just came up with on the fly. It's not like, oh well, da, da, da. And like so, what I always have to do is I have to have another ChatGPT open, and then I have to ask it if it knows anything about the word that we just came up on. So and many times it'll be like, oh yes, this is a standard blah blah blah, and it means this, that, this, and that. Or it may be like, yeah, I've never heard of that. And then I'll know, okay, so this is something that I'm sort of, if I'm going to bring it to them, I have to bring it to them as something that I made up, that not as a standard normal thing that you find in industry. So anyways, now we're going to run our end-to-end test. It's a shame that we didn't add anything new. So we can't really do an end-to-end test that does something cool. Because, we've already done all this. It is funny, though, because I don't know if I mentioned this the other day or if it was just something I was just thinking about. But it is funny because when you will, like, this application will get to the point where I can make a new end-to-end test every week that does something cool and not have any new code. Right now, basically, I wrote a whole bunch of new code. I did architectural changes, but I can't really do anything with it. And then, so probably, like, if I were to redo this from scratch and I was kind of going through this process, maybe I would have added, like, the ability to change. Well, I just can't think of a good way to do that. But the ability to maybe have control the different kinds of meshes. Whether it's a cube or a whatever. But anyways, so that was pretty cool. I felt like the time was okay. Maybe it should have been a little faster. Now that we're no longer trying to show it off, maybe it would make sense to make that, like, not quite so long. So let's go in our Cypress code. I do like Cypress though, and like I swear on a daily basis at work, I think, man, it sure would be nice if we had Cypress right now. Like, because we're like, it would be nice just to run like a test real quick. That I guess it's in fixtures. Maybe it's in EDE. Oh, yeah, there it is. Um, let's see, do I have time outs? Yeah. So I really like this wait time concept. Um, I feel like that's something that I just sort of made up and have enjoyed. I think it just makes a lot of sense to have the wait time set up. I think that any, like, let's say you, like when I worked for the federal government and we had a lot of visualizations. Their biggest, probably one of their biggest issues was the ability to demonstrate to their potential customers things. And had they had access to these E2E tests, like if we had had a nice suite of E2E tests, and they could have done probably 10 times the sales that they were doing, because they would just be able to be like, oh, okay, so yeah, here, let's push this button. These are the cool things we're going to do. And then, like, it would have paid massive dividends in that organization to have a team fully dedicated to building EDE demonstrations, because these can easily be tweaked into something that you can sell, um, whatever product you guys do. um, and they're so effing reliable, right? Like, it's like, how many times are companies trying to do, like, you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to do a demo, guys, don't touch anything, let's not touch anything, let's just make sure that everything's the same. And it's just like, you know if you run the E to E tests and you're like, hey, this is something that our salespeople need, in order to you know get us more money and stuff, and we want to make sure that all these EDE tests always work. But that's like part of the rule before you push it to whatever sales.ourapp.com. Then the salespeople can, and whoever is doing demos and stuff, they can have absolute confidence that this is going to work. And then, like, then they can go, like, when they're going, okay, we have some new code and we'd like you guys to demo it. And they're like, okay, let's run the EDE tests on it. Nope, that doesn't work. Okay, this doesn't work. Okay, what do we need to change? Blah, blah, blah. And then, because honestly, demos, like, when I worked at CNN, we used to have like these demo websites that they would make. Like, so what happened is, like, we would have the way our application was built, it was very robust, but it was extremely, like, rigid in what it would allow. And so then our competitors, like at Fox News and stuff like that, they would have their system was much more fragmented. It wasn't like a centralized sort of super robust thing that it was more of a bunch of small applications that sort of were the UI was sort of modified so that it would look, and so they could build these crazy things for demos to sell that they are never going to do actually in real life, so they'd be like, oh, we're going to do this crazy ad that does all this stuff and all that, but it was like, oh my god, that's going to bring your entire site down if you guys actually try to do that and put it in front of however many millions and then of people, and then it's just like, well, that's cool because they could sell it and then walk it back and then give them what they would give them, which wouldn't even be as good as what we could give them, but we couldn't do that crazy demo at the front. And that was like, so then we had to come up with a whole different architecture so that we could build out things like that bringing in without bringing the site down, and without crashing the site. And so that was you know these I think this is probably building good end-to-end demos for your applications, especially if they're visualizations and stuff, is probably more important than actually building a good application like that. Building that nice front end that the salespeople and other people like that, account managers, can rely on, is probably so incredibly important. But anyways, so we are all done with that. I think it is good time to do a commit. I think we should probably just do a commit right now. This would be a good time to do that so we can get a fresh start tomorrow. And let's see. So we'll get a fresh start tomorrow, and then I think the next step is, so basically all I did on as part of this work was move this stuff into its own. Is it? That's so weird. I feel like that happened yesterday too. I clicked it and then I clicked it again and it didn't. See, that is wild because are there three of them now? Like, I don't understand why the end to end isn't failing if you click it and the second click doesn't work. Let's see, inspect. Oh, there are three. So we do have a bug there, and end to end did not catch that. Um, what really blows my mind is that I think we have one where the fourth one is there. So, and then, okay, so this is left. Okay, so the third one is not being set. It's never even getting called. So we have a timing issue here, and the end did not catch it. So okay, so let's see if we can duplicate this bug. Okay, so then we click it a second time, and now, oh, and you know what our end-to-end test does? It just checks to see that there's two of them. It doesn't actually check to see that the second one is over. Oh yeah, let's close this thing because it's a bit of a distraction. I mean, we can still figure it out, but see, I think our end-to-end test, what it does is it actually checks to see that the second one is just exists, which then that passes. But we actually want to check to see that it's at 200. Okay, so, and I think it would be in inputs, right? We have four tests to choose from to modify, to decide whether we did this. So click and then should create, should exist. Viz should exist. Okay, so we actually don't even check to see if there's two of them. So there's this one, which all it does is check to see that the different keystrokes work. And maybe that's not the right one to do. Okay, so we want to go in this view and then this view over here so we can see. What does this one do? So this one just does, so resize kind of already does something very similar because it checks to see this. And then it's kind of tough because we do like a 16. Okay, so 002 checks to see if a visualization exists. 003 checks to see if resize exists. It seems like we actually want this to be, we want to create a new one that would go between 003 and 004, 002 and 003 that says, that checks to see if the second one it was placed properly. So then here's the question is like, does it make, I guess it makes sense at this point to write the test first. And then once the test is written, watch it fail and then fix the code. So this is actually test-driven development. And I think that does make sense. And I think it makes sense. And this would be like not something, what I'm about to do from a naming perspective would be extraordinarily disruptive in a like if you were working with other developers. But so basically, I guess this is what we're going to do tomorrow. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this. I'm just set myself up for what I'm going to do tomorrow. Rename that 4. So that would screw everybody in Git. Like that would make things really, really, well, if everyone did this, it would be really, really difficult because what would happen is, like, let's say somebody else had something that they wanted to be 3, then we would like clash. But since I'm the only one working on it, it's no big deal for me just to rename this. I definitely can be sure. But so we want to, I guess, I don't think we just broke anything by doing that. Let's just double check. Like, I don't think there was any sort of name tying, because I remember we had to use the tool to create our script. So I was actually going to manually create an 003 second item. Okay, so, the URL, yeah, we need to run the app. And we'll wait for it. It's kind of cool to have this try again. So we can wait for it to come up, tell it to try again. It's going to be very interesting to see. And it doesn't really surprise me because there are, like, anytime you move things into lower components, there's always timing issues that appear. Okay, start end testing in Chrome. And then, okay, so the names seem fine. So we'll run this. That was fine because all that does is check for the, and then this is fine because all it does is check for 1. Now this is interesting because there is a point where we have 3 things and so you only see 2 of them. So had I been a little bit more aware, I would have noticed that, oh my gosh, the three of them aren't showing, and it's because one of them is sitting here. And then see, at some point it does fix itself. No, it didn't actually. Oh yeah, so we should add 4 rows of 4, but we don't. We have 3 rows. So the last one is not getting drawn. So yeah, so basically now I think the important thing is to create a test for that specific thing. Now that we've found that problem, I think it makes sense. Do I go here? And I want to add plus new spec. And we want to create new spec. I don't know. That thing does a bunch of crazy stuff. I'm sure it's good stuff, but. And we want to name this 03 viz spacing. Now, just to be clear, like this would probably be like an incredibly, just a disaster in a in a in an actual professional setting. Like you've gotten all the way to the end and you're ready to commit everything and you think you're all done. You just probably reported this morning, I'm hoping to, I'll be putting that into PR this afternoon. And then all of a sudden, like, it's like, oh shit, everything, it's broken. We got a bug. We got a bug. All right, so we have our thing, and basically the purpose of this is to test our is just to make sure that the last one ends up, the second one ends up being shifted over, and for some reason it's not being shifted over, so we need to figure that out, and we will figure that out, but first we will make a failing test. So yeah, I have somehow managed to sort of back my way into a TDD sort of situation, but not with unit tests, but more with end-to-end tests. So yeah, we'll see. So I think that probably works. Maybe I'm kind of like thinking on the fly here. I think that maybe that works if you're bug fixing and you know exactly what the outcome it is. But I don't know if it works for creating features, because honestly, there's always some sort of creative, like, I don't know. I think that when you're trying to be creative and you're trying to come up with like novel solutions, sort of setting, like, what kind of happens is, like, what's happening here with this is I am saying, hey, I know what I want. I want when the second one comes up for it to be in the correct position. That's what I want. And if so I don't want any creativity. I want a specific outcome. But with feature development, unfortunately, that's very rarely the case. Almost always what they want is for you to build something out so that they can kind of look at it and then go, oh yeah, let's change this and let's change that. And if you have a bunch of unit tests and a bunch of other tests that are sort of forcing it to be the way that you guys originally wanted it to be, that those unit tests, I think, can be more, and I'm just kind of spitballing here, but I think they can be more restrictive than and not allow you to actually build a good solution. Eh, those are some very raw ideas and thoughts. But anyway, so tomorrow we will build out our viz spacings Cypress end-to-end test, and then we will fix it. See, hopefully that's fixed tomorrow. If not, not. But I mean, this is the kind of bug that like could exist for months. Like it could be months before it exposes itself, because like every time I thought, oh, I just didn't click it. I just didn't click it. That was a problem. Is like I thought I clicked it, but I didn't. Then all of a sudden it was just like, man, this is weird. This is happening over and over again. But like if I had like if I was working on 4 different PRs they're waiting, and now I'm getting this one QA person asking me questions and blah blah blah. Like I wouldn't get that sort of train of thought of, oh, okay, this has broken 5 times. I 5 times I thought I clicked it and it wasn't there. Let me go check. Let me do some investigation. Oh crap, there's a bug there. So, and the whole oh my god, I can't even imagine trying to explain that up the line. You're like, no, it's there. You just can't see it. It just didn't get moved. They're like, what? But yeah, that would be weird. Anyways, so that's good. I think that is exactly kind of what you hope for. You hope that when you make these little changes that don't seem like they should break anything, but then they do break something, that you find out why, and that you actually come up with a really good way to. So this is a kind of another pet peeve of mine. A lot of times something like that will happen, and then they'll be like, and they are being like the folks at the sort of manager director level will be like, how can we make sure this never happens again? And generally what they'll do is they'll add some sort of process. So now every time before we do this, we make sure we do that. But see, in this case, I'm saying I'm just going to add another test. And then from now on, when I'm making changes, if you click the button and the second one doesn't slide over in the appropriate amount of time, let's say we're going to say within a tenth of a second, it has to render the second one in the right position. If that doesn't happen, then we're going to we'll throw an error up, and we might find out that like literally every time we do anything, that gets broken. Like I've seen that before, where like literally every single time you make any kind of change, some aspect gets broken, and then you're like not testing it. The one that I see all the time is when you have imports. Like you're like, oh, okay, we're gonna do an import, and then you write some code to add a new feature, and then suddenly you have an import, and then suddenly the import's broken again, and everyone totally forgot to test it and all that. So like that's definitely something I want to have end-to-end testing from on when I get imports working. So, anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye.